Oh, I just went to restart it and the starter's stuck. Yeah, I pulled the key and it was still going. So, yeah, that starter's fried. She's getting hot. Look at her down there. She's down there buried under header. So I'm going to order a high torque starter, probably the cheapest $60 one I saw on eBay. Because, you know, why would I spend double that and get one that lasts when I can take a gamble, you know? I got the cables put in, but I'll wait until I get the starter. Video to follow. Will it run? All right, ladies and gentlemen. Went out to move the truck. I wanted to look at some stuff. There was a big puddle underneath. So brought it out back here in this area. And I was missing a bolt. Let's see, I know I put it in because it was this side. This is where I did everything. It was this bolt right here. But put that in, tightened 3 around it, and checked them all. The dripping has stopped, cleaned it off. Very interesting. But I also want to address, I got a hot start issue I was telling you about. The starter's probably seen better days. So I'd like to throw a high torque one in it. But as you see, I got the angled bolt pattern. And we need to see if the block is drilled already for the straight pattern, because that just, it makes it easier. And there you can see it goes straight over. You see the bolt? So there's another bolt hole right there. That's the other starter bolt hole. So I could put a straight from here, this bolt over. So I could do that, and then I also wanted to see about the solenoid. Let's rotate you. I have the one terminal, I believe, because I have an HEI ignition in here, so I don't need the other terminal for, there's 2 terminals on some of these solenoids, and that would be for a voltage rectifier. I meant ballast resistor. So I just have the single, which goes to the ignition switch, and the big terminal, the battery, which is black for some reason. It actually looks in the service manual, it was factory, it was black. So maybe they didn't care about red and black back in '74. Fusible links there appear to be intact. But yeah, I'd like to do new cables, battery cables. I think I've shown you guys that. So I think I'm going to look into a high torque starter for this. As you can see, there's the header. I mean, they just throw so much heat compared to an exhaust manifold, and they just cook these starters. So I think my leak's going to take care of. And let's see. Yeah, look at that oil pan dent. That's nice, isn't it? So we jack it up right there, maybe. Someday we'll address that. And I guess I'm gonna say and instead of Oh, I'm so happy. There's an O'Reilly in my neighborhood. Yeah, this store's new. I didn't know it was here. It's so closer than, I'm really disappointed with AutoZone's shit lately. So I got some battery cables for this bad boy that I wanted to get. That's not a battery cable. There she is. So we're going to do some new cables. I don't know if we'll do it today, but yeah, I'm just happy. Cool. Okay. What is this? This is everything I need. This is a Speedway Motors. I lied. I didn't go with the cheapest $60 eBay starter. Oh, by the way, Merry Christmas, everybody. Hope you had a good one. This is after the fact. This is Sunday. This is the day of rest for everybody. Or you're inside screaming at your television over a bunch of football teams. Well, me, I'm out here. So, yeah, I got this $100 starter instead. Speedway Motors, and got the battery cables. And I did the right thing, and I did not order a heat shield for this, but I took some quality pieces of paper and mocked up my own, and I picked up a $10 sheet of aluminum, and we're going to fabricate that. I think they wanted $20 for one, and at the time I was like, I don't need a heat shield, but the more I think about it, I'm like, the headers, well, I'll get it in there, we'll take a look, but yeah, it's going to be all right in there, so figured that'd be a good idea. And what else can I tell you? That's about it. Yeah, this is a mini starter. Oh yeah, here's the things it came with. Check out this. I've never seen this. You buy a starter anywhere else. They give you the specs. They tested it, and it gives you all the flow chart, the torque it made. It's crazy. So yeah, shout out to Speedway Motors. No affiliation, but let's hope it lives up to its name. All right, first step is to let you know that, wow, I really sound clear, don't I? Well, it's because I got another microphone. I've got a Bluetooth lavalier microphone, so I'm wireless now. Seems to be working all right. It's pretty loud. But we got to disconnect this battery, obviously, because we're doing starter stuff, and also because we're getting rid of these here cables. Like I said many times before, this is a red negative, and it's just always annoyed the shit out of me. And the black, I got a whole new one to go all the way down to the starter. Figured that'd be a good idea. So we're going to disconnect both these. Probably we'll do the wiring last. I want to get the starter out and see about fitting a heat shield as well, and actually make sure the starter's going to fit too. Because you know, been down that road before too. Oh, there we go. Now we're recording. I think it's the rubber gloves. Try and push buttons, it doesn't record. Anywho, if you've ever done a starter, obviously first thing you do is the bolts for the battery. You want to disconnect the battery. And then up here we got our, put you up in there, some light. You got your 9/16 for the main. The fuck is the light? Where's the lens? Oh, way over there. Your big one's a 9/16, and your little terminal on this particular deal is an 11/32. Right there. So disconnect. I just got sand in my eye from the tire. Ugh. Right behind the safety goggles. So yeah, disconnect those, and then that'll get all the wiring off, and then I can just do the two. Are they also 9/16? Yeah, I think they are. Two bolts, and drop this heavy ass starter down. All right, pulled my wires down. Obviously the main to the battery. Two fusible links, you can see them there. And this may be going up to our ignition. But then I also noticed I do have another one. I do have the 2-terminal solenoid. Fuck, I didn't think I did. I looked. But as far as I know, that was always for a ballast resistor for the for starting. So I'm going to try and disconnect that. I may have to do a little wiring change. I do have HEI, so I don't think I need that. I think that goes right to the alternator, because that's a pretty fat gauge wire. Alright, let's figure this out. Nothing's ever easy. Alright, next thing I'm doing, I'm taking off this ground. Sorry, negative ground from the battery cable. This is one I made to ground the engine to the frame. And this is the black positive cable, which is supposed to be red. And it has a nice holder right here that we're removing. That should free up all my wiring down to the starter now. I think I'm just going to pull it all up through here. As long as it doesn't get hung up on the motor mount. Yes, it probably will. Getting hung up on something. I'll have to get underneath. And this is why I wanted to pull out the wires, because It's getting hung up. But look at that right there. This one is not going to the starter. It is going to my fuel sender. And I've had fuel sender issues, but that certainly is hanging on, man. It's just hanging on. That's what oil will do, break down wires, the rubber coating and everything. So that's going to need to be fixed. But I think I'm just going to cut that right there so I can snake this whole harness out of there. Yeah, that's to be expected. Old truck, right? All right, and then we'll address this. See if I got any gauge. How far back I gotta go to fix that? Probably not too far. It looks a little better shape down here. If I show you that on camera, that would help, huh? Put you in the tripod here. So here's the whole positive cable. It's got just like a cloth wrap on it down by the motor mount. That's a great idea for the heat. I'll redo something with that. This is definitely a, what did I get? I got a 2 gauge wire. This is definitely a little bit thicker. So, but I am running a easier starter on the system, so I'm going to take all this tape off and do the, it's just oil soaked anyway, and cut that. Probably be a good idea, so I can get a better look at these connections. Fusible links, they're kind of, they just fail. I don't know if there's anything you can really look at. I mean, if they're solid, they're solid. The sender we cut. And I got to trace these. Make sure I get the one I'm wondering about was the solo one here. That went right to the starter, and that's what color? What color did you used to be before oil? Look at my diagram for sure. Figure this out. I think I can wire it up to that block instead of the starter. I'm trying to remember. I was reading on some stuff how to eliminate. I don't think it's needed anymore because it goes. I don't have a points and ballast resistor. And I needed a voltage. What did they need? They needed a voltage, constant voltage, not a voltage drop when you're cranking. Something to that effect. It's oil colored. That's the color on the fatty. And then I got a female just kind of slit on there. I'm going to use heat shrink tubing and all that goodness, not the cheap, crappy connectors they want you to use. You know, let's get some solder on there. That's a muy importante. Now I don't like to use the crimps. So I just take them off. Sometimes you can just cut them off. And then I will just use a heat shrink tubing and solder. You can see that? Is that not even in the camera? God, I'm awful. And heat shrink tubing on first. Don't make that mistake. I've only done that 1,000 times. And solder. And I got a little torch. This will shrink the tubing. But I prefer an actual soldering iron. Works better for doing solder. And that tip has pre-tinned. Look at that, I have a little bit of solder on there. That'll actually help. So I'm going to do those real quick. And then maybe I'll jump back to the bottom of the starter and get that fitted. Here's a little shot of the size difference. These mother effers. Pretty. I almost say equally heavy. Nah, it's a little bit lighter. A little bit lighter. So we've got the one terminal that I'm adapting to. This had the 2, an S and an R terminal. I explained. It has a Duralast somebody put in, looks like. And what was the other thing I was looking at? It's all missing the rubber, or it's all corroded, so it's probably getting moisture in there. So next I'm going to do a little test fit, and it must bolt back here. The gear, yeah. And because there's some measurements, I'll show you what I got here. They gave us a bunch of shims. Usually I've dealt with these shims on Chevy starters, you know. And that gives you bringing the gear into the flywheel, right? And these they also give you to bring it away from the flywheel. And they give you some measurements to check some of this paperwork. They give you the new bolts, which is great. They don't have the knurling like the other ones have. That is for, you know, to hold the bolt in there strength-wise. There's a lot of torque. Maybe not. Maybe they figure it's not as much torque, or they're just being cheap. But maybe a little blue thread lock. Not even blue. RTV, just something light. We'll see. And they give you the new bolt or new nut. That's a nut, everybody. That's a lock washer. And I don't know what these. There's some more other spacers. Oh, maybe obviously the washers for the bolts. I'll have to look, but I'm gonna go test fit this right now. All right, she fits nicely up in there. And look at that. I mean, that's the header right there. Look how close those solenoids are. No wonder they get some light up there. That's like an inch right there, an inch from the header. So we're going to want to make that shield for sure. Wiring is going to have plenty of room. What we want to look at now is they want us to measure clearances from here to the flywheel. See that gap? Looks like a, let me take away the camera, maybe 1/8 inch. And then when it's engaged, they want you to measure. I mentioned putting like a coat hanger. Guess I could push it. Can I pull it out manually? Is it possible? Or you just got to do it, huh? Well, they want you to do that. I'm going to have to go look at that situation. But, yeah, it's just different. Just missing a nose cone, whereas other starter has a nose cone. This one has nothing. Interesting. Those gears have a nice little bevel to them. All right, let's heat shield it, and maybe I'll do these measurements first, clearances, and then heat shield. Well, I didn't like how that was going. I shimmed the starter. The gear comes out. It's still tight, but I'm going to walk away from that, and I'm going to work on this shield. This is a template I made yesterday. I'm just going to cut it big and then trim it out, and then we'll bend it up. Do yourself a favor and spend the $20 and get the heat shield. This sucker's crudely made, but I think it's going to do the job. I think the one they bought was a little thicker. I could do another layer over it if I really wanted to, but maybe I'll leave that sticker too so it heats up, burns up. I don't know. We'll see. Clean it up. Make it look pretty. All right, folkies. She's all up in there. I started doing my wiring, my positive cable, routed it, put a big piece of heater hose where it goes behind the motor mount and protect it a little bit better. This is still my fuel sender. Gotta fuse that one together. And let's see up top. What we got up top. Whew. Whew. All right, coming up by the fuel pump. I gotta move this. That's the header, obviously. So I gotta get this stuff away from it. Gotta do something better there. Maybe put a hose over that section too. Right in there. And this is coming up. Decent length. Positive. Run my negative now and go from there. Right, might as well film the moment of truth. I don't know why I'm so scared. It's just a starter, but just worried about that R wire that I want to be positive. But let's see. Wait for this car to go by. Put some tools in here. Okay. Should be a hell of a hear me microphone. And put the key in. Key on. Oh, that sounded like a fuel pump running. That was funny. Ooh, got nothing. That's funny. Okay. No power. My R terminal more important then than going straight to positive. Okay, so I make mistakes, and that's what I did. When I was took my wire, I switched my R terminal, my S terminal wire somehow, so I had them on wrong, and so now I have the connections. The spade terminal is not, it's supposed to be a ring terminal, so I gotta go back and switch that. But I'm running out of daylight here, so I put the old starter back in to figure all this out. And I looked back at the video, and I'm like, yeah, that big fat black wire was supposed to go to the S terminal, and somehow I swapped them. I can't see the colors. I guess that probably doesn't help. That's number one excuse. I cleaned off all those wires, but yeah, you can't really tell colors. Is this black? Is this red? I think it's this black wire that goes up to the ignition to. So anyway, I'm gonna button this up. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, so I can't do it tomorrow probably. But get all the cables in. Just go to rewire that, put the right starter in, and make sure it's shimmed up right. But oh, ran out of daylight. You know, it's not even the freaking daylight. It's the fact that, what is daylight? It's the fact that I have to work in the alley. So anything I do, I have to finish that day. So fucking annoying. And it doesn't fit in here. Why don't I buy a truck that fits in a garage? I guess that's why I used to do motorcycles. Okay, folks, this is what I should have done in the first place. I have Wi-Fi that probably reaches the garage. I could have brought my computer out there this whole time. But somehow in that meantime of that black wire, the purple, this is how you read this, by the way. This is 12 gauge purple. Not sure what the 6 means, but that's what that's the gauge number, 16, 10, 2. 2 gauge is your black, that's the, we want it red. It is red now. Like, for some reason, factory had a black wire going to the battery positive. Which is why somebody probably jump-started this thing and shorted out a bunch of shit at one point. But anyway, so that black wire, I, for some reason, swapped when I had all these other ones off and had it going to the R terminal, which is only a 20 gauge. It's real tiny, and it's yellow. I think is what that Y is. So I have those 2 wires swapped. That's why I wasn't getting anything to start. So I'm going to put a female terminal on this tomorrow. Well, next time it's dry. And that's going up to the ignition. That's into the cab, and that's with a signal to start. These other ones are fusible links, various things. Like I said, see how I snuck that in there? Like I said, it's the little yellow one is a splice, and that is going to the coil back when you had points. That's what that was for. And then there's a resistor in this other spliced wire. I'm not going to pay attention to any of that, but yeah, and the fusible link stuff is probably going to gauges and stuff, but that's what I did. I made a mistake. I remember the, usually that's a 12 gauge. Well, that's a pretty thick wire going up to the ignition switch. So I just grabbed the small one. It was only that yellow dainty wire. I didn't 20 gauge going up to, well, I mean, it makes sense. You don't want some of these new cars that are dainty little wire that goes up to the ignition switch. But okay, so that's the diagram, and we'll attack that next. All right.